Welcome to the Diva Life Show, where music meets fashion, culture meets travel, and we explore the stories of extraordinary artists and entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Diva Life Show, where music meets fashion, culture meets travel, and we explore the stories of extraordinary artists and entrepreneurs. I'm your host and resident diva, Heather Poduska. Today on the show, we welcome fashion entrepreneur and creative director of House of Culture, Zoe Petty. Zoe Petty is the creative and digital director of the brand and fashion store's House of Culture. But her story with the store began long before that. Born into the business on Newbury Street in Boston, Zoe grew up surrounded by fashion, family, and a community deeply tied to the House of Culture's legacy. From toddling around in high heels left in the dressing rooms to attending her first buyer show at 18, House of Culture was always shaping her, long before she realized she would one day be shaping it in return. At 23, she took on the role of creative director, modernizing the brand by launching an e-commerce presence, revamping the branding, and taking over the digital strategy. As part of a rare, multi-generational small business, Zoe carries forward a legacy of culture and style, ensuring House of Culture continues to evolve while staying true to its roots. Welcome.
Oh my goodness, that was so kind. I love that. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here.
So excited to chat with you.
Yeah, and I'm always like looking for interesting people to interview. Some people I know, some people I meet through other people, and I found you, we found each other through
TikTok.
TikTok.
Oh the power of TikTok.
I know.
The power of social media is amazing.
Yeah, and I saw you and I was like, oh, who is this person? She's so interesting. And there was a store and there was fashion, but then it was more than that. Because there are lots of stores, there are lots of people who are business owners, but there was more to what you were doing. And I was like, I have to have her on the show.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So House of Culture, tell us what House of Culture is and how it came into being.
Okay, yeah, so my father opened up House of Culture. Originally the store was called Culture Shock, and it was on Newbury Street. Okay. So he opened it up in 1991, but my father has a million stories and a very interesting story of how it came to be. So basically, he is the youngest boy of 15.
Wow.
Same parents, no twins.
Wow.
Yeah, just a big church family. So
wow.
He grew up, he lived in Pennsylvania, New York, and then he went to high school in Columbus, Ohio, so that's where he claims. And he was really into fashion. My grandfather was a preacher, so my dad loved watching him in his suits, and my grandmother with the big church hats.
Uh-huh.
So he was always very into fashion, and he went to college in London.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he majored in merchandising and design, and he got a job opportunity. A man named Craig, he owned a store called Alston Beat, and it was on Newbury Street. And he said, would you ever be interested in coming to Boston? My dad's like, I want to go to New York. What's in Boston?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And Craig convinced him. He came to Boston. He was managing that store for a while. And then after a couple of years, he said, I think I can go on my own. Wow. And he opened up Culture Shock in 91.
Wow. And Newbury Street, for people who don't know, it's like the street in Boston.
Yes. And
it's like the Rodeo Drive of Boston.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the time, and even when I was younger, because, we left Newbury Street when I was in elementary school, but I do, have memories of it at a young age. But at the time, Newbury Street was even more than it is now. It was a lot of boutiques. Uh-huh. So now, Newbury Street's kind of changed. Some bigger brand stores, more like conglomerates. Uh-huh. But at the time, it was a lot of boutiques. Yeah. And so my father was one of them, Culture Shock. And then in 97, I was born.
Okay, big year.
Yeah. So a couple years later, I was born. And literally, like you said, I was born right into it. Uh-huh. My mom will tell you, because my mom worked at the store too, and she'll be like, my birthday's December 18th, and she was like, oh, well, that's our busy season, so we're gonna have to figure this out. And I'm like, okay.
You can't be born on the 18th.
Yeah, not too close to Christmas though.
Yeah.
Definitely not New Year's. Whoa. we do have a business to run. Uh-huh. And then 98, we renamed to House of Culture, and like you said, the store really shaped me. I never thought this is what I'd be doing, but here we are 27 years later. I turned 27 a couple months ago, and I am of course this is what I'm doing. It makes sense. Maybe I didn't put it together, but if you tell anyone, they're like, yeah, no, this was the obvious path.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny because when I found you on TikTok, I was like, okay, I've got to check this out. You're not, I'm not just going to grab anybody. I want to like, okay, do my due diligence. I said to my husband, let's go check this out. Let's go check out the store and see what's up. So we go into the store and there's this guy sitting there and he just looked very unassuming. And I said, oh, is this your store? And he's like, this is, so it was your dad.
Yep.
So we're chatting. And I think that we were in the store for like, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes, just talking. So I know where you went to college.
Yeah.
He knows about my kids.
Yeah.
It was like, it was so cool to meet him. And I had no idea about all the stories that he had because I just saw you.
Yeah.
So that was so amazing. What was it like for you to grow up in that environment? And did you want to go into fashion designing? I know you went to college for something else. So
Exactly.
when did the shift come where you're like, oh, maybe I do want to go this direction?
You know, it kind of came in waves, right? So growing up in the store, I loved it because it's like, it's so much more fun than like an after school program. Like I saw so many characters and people from all walks of life. You know, on Newbury Street, there was one crowd and we, you know, had our like consistent customers, but then you always get like, you know, random people that come in, you know, especially Newbury Street, there's so many tourists.
Yeah, right.
And now when we're in the South End on Columbus Ave, and that's such a good hub, like right in the middle of, we're next to the colleges, so we have the college students that are from all over, especially like when you get to Berklee College of Music, like they are getting people from all over the world in Northeastern. And then we're still close enough to like the more residential sides of Boston that like Boston residents are comfortable coming to us because sometimes they don't want to go all the way to like Newbury Street, like a little more touristy now.
Yeah.
So we're in that middle ground where we get people from all over. So from a really young age, I was used to all types of characters, all types of people. And I think that did really lend itself to, you know, being comfortable around people and really being able to talk to anybody. And I did not think this is what I was going to be doing.
So what path were you on when you?
I was on the path of civic engagement, public policy. So I went to Temple University for college and I majored in strategic communication and political science.
Wow.
So I was like, first of all, I didn't even think I was going to be back in Boston.
Yeah.
Maybe my freshman year, I was like, I'm gonna go to Temple and then I'll come right back. And then after that, I was like, oh no, I need to see the world. I need to be in.
Well,
you know. But so I thought I was gonna go into like public policy, maybe work for a think tank in DC or like corporate social responsibility in New York. And
Which are great, noble
yes,
things
absolutely.
to do.
I was like, I want to, you know, find ways to help people and, you know, be a resource.
Yeah.
But now I'm working on finding ways to do that. You know, I'm sure we'll talk about that in other ways for the store though.
Yeah.
But when I was like in third grade, I was like, I want to be a fashion designer. And my parents bought me the little set, you know, so you can make the clothes for the little like Barbie that you have. And I was like a flower girl in a wedding, so I cut up that dress after the wedding was long gone. Like I was,
okay, so it's all right. Not before. The bride was okay.
Yeah, the bride was okay.
Okay.
And I like cut up that dress and made it into a skirt. You know, it wasn't with jagged edges, but you know, I could have.
Well, you were in third grade, right? We'll cut you some slack.
But so I had like inklings, but then it was like, oh no, but this isn't the main thing. But you know, when you're younger, you also don't think that like your parents are gonna ever get older and that anyone's gonna need to take over.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, oh no, this is the store and it will be here forever. Why wouldn't it be? You know, it's always been here. It's not like I was born in. You know, I was literally born into it. If my dad had opened the store when I was like in school already, I would have been like, oh, I see like the hard work that this takes, but no, I was just born, it was here, so it's going to be here forever.
So you're at college, you're like, I'm going to do civic, political policy, and then what changed for you?
Well, you know, the story that most people have, COVID.
Right? COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people.
So basically I was in my final semester of college and March, you know, shut down, we were on spring break. And it's funny because I remember I was watching a show with my mom and she was like, well, you won't be home for a couple months, so let's just finish it, let's binge it. And I was like, all right. And next week I'm back home and I'm like, well, that took a turn.
Now we have nothing to watch.
Yeah, exactly. If you wouldn't have been so adamant about binging that show,
exactly.
we have something to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, COVID came and it kind of just put a pause. It was just like, all right, what do I want to do? Let me think, because the jobs that I was applying for was quickly clear, like, oh, they're not hiring right now. Like, they're probably going to start firing, actually. But yeah, I was like, okay, let's pause. What do I want to do? I'm definitely not going to move to a new city right now. I'm definitely not going to move to like New York or DC right now. Those are the cities there's too much going on.
Yeah.
So I took a beat. For a second, I was like, do I want to go to law school? Because, I already had the strategic communication, political science.
Right.
It's like everybody else in my majors do this. Let me check it out. I was studying for the LSAT, and I was like, oh, I don't like this. Like, I'm not enjoying this at all. And it's so funny, the power of podcasts. I was listening to a podcast, and I was looking for a shirt it was my birthday, and I was looking for a shirt. My pants are from House of Culture, of course. And I was listening to this podcast, and this woman was talking about how she started her business and how she had a YouTube series, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't need to start from scratch. My father did that.
Right.
I can just build on everything that he's created and grown, and I can expand the store.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I remember calling one of my friends, and she was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because she grew up with me and,
Yeah.
had grown up in the store as well. So she was like, yeah, of course that's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And so the next week for Christmas, I gave my father, not the most exciting, gift, but it was a communication plan. Because that's to show that I had been, learned something in college.
Right.
This is what we were doing in school.
Yeah.
Here's my communication plan for House of Culture. And then for the next 11 months, I built the website.
Wow.
I basically taught myself everything on YouTube and just do a lot of business podcasts actually. And I rebranded, I redid our logo, just kind of updated it. And also so we could have, it could be digitized. I did all of our branding. And then I figured out how I was going to take pictures for the website.
Yeah.
And then lugged everything home to my in-home studio, and 11 months later, November 1st, launched the website.
Wow. You got your hustle on. You were doing it and really creating. So I'm curious, was there the brand presence before you did that, or did you kind of really usher that in?
So, people had, obviously, at that point we had been in business for probably 29 years.
Yeah.
So people knew who we were, but obviously, we didn't have a website yet. And it's funny because my dad had people in mind to create the website, and he'll tell you now no, it was good that it was Zoe who did it, because now there's that family touch, there's that personal touch.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So it's it happened in the way that it was supposed to happen, but also when we were on Newbury Street. In the 90s, you just needed word of mouth and maybe a newspaper ad.
Because people are walking by.
Exactly.
Right.
And then, maybe a couple newspaper ads, throw it in a magazine, do a couple fashion shows. But, you're trying to get the greater Boston area. But now we're competing on such a global scale, especially after COVID when everything went online.
Yeah.
So it was oh, now we really need this.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I was able to do it so I could bring in that personal touch. So I could, I say a lot of it is me kind of singing my father's praise and expanding what he's built.
Yeah. Well, you're the communications expert.
I don't being so kind to him in person. I won't tell him that, but I'll say it, behind his back. Yeah. I'll give him a couple compliments.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was so fun for me. It was just creative time, and it was it's funny because at that time I was sleeping most of the day, and then I'd be up all night because it was my creative time.
Yeah,
so I'd start at 8 o'clock and go to sleep at 4 a.m. And
wow.
For that night I would have worked on the logo or done something. But it was so fun. I was really in such a creative mindset in space. Now I'm okay, it's 11. I need to go to sleep. I'm exhausted.
Yeah, well, that was one of the gifts of lockdown,
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible in so many ways, but in other ways, it was this gift of time, of quiet, of focus, and putting your schedule how you want it to be.
Exactly, and truly a focus. In the middle of the night, no one's calling you,
Yeah.
So I was just at my apartment in Philly at the time, 'cause I still lived in Philly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so I still lived in Philly for the first year that we had the website.
Wow.
So I was I'd commute. So I'd go, I'd get something done, and so I'd create our TikTok, or I would finish up the logo, or finish a couple variations of the logo and send it to my dad and say, okay, which one do we like? And then I'd say, all right, okay, let me go home this weekend and maybe make some content or pull some stuff, and then I'll go back to Philly. So I was doing that for a year, just kind of every once in a while when I needed to, I'd go home for, 3 to 7 days, and then I'd go back to Philly. And eventually, when it came time to renew my lease, I was like, this is unsustainable. I have to go back to Boston. And I was like, oh, wow. Like, okay, am I ready to go back home? And like the initial adjustment, you know, because like the people you grew up with, they're all doing different things now, or they're not in the city anymore. And your college friends are all, you know, with their real jobs. And, you know, so it was a bit of an adjustment, but it was exactly what I needed to do. And I don't regret it at all.
It's so interesting. I was interviewing someone else. We were talking about the golden thread in life, that there's just this, if you can hop on it, if you can hop on that golden thread, it just like pulls you along. And there's all these kind of like divine timing things that happen. When you're telling me the story about COVID and how it just aligned with what your dad needed, what the store needed, what the brand needed, and where you were in life, it just, I don't know if you feel that way or if you think about it that way at all.
No, I did, because it truly felt so aligned. And I was like, okay, this is what God wants me to do, because it feels so like easy. Like now, you know, obviously there are challenges, but at the end of the day, it was like, oh, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like I never felt any type of like uncertainty. And so even when I first started, my mom was like, okay, are you sure? Like you don't have to do this. You can, you know, be like everyone else, get a 9-to-5, you know, get some benefits, you know, have a 401k and be good. And I was like, no, I promise this is going to work out. Like I have so much faith. And now she's like, no, I completely get it. I see it. But at first she was like, this is hard. And I've been with your dad this entire time. I know that there are challenges to having a business. Are you sure you want to do this? I don't want to watch you struggle. And I was like, I promise it's going to work out. Like I know it is.
I love that. I also had a mentor once that talked about like when you find your lane, it's not like you're swimming upstream. It's not that there's no effort, but it's not like you're swimming upstream all the time. You're kind of going with the natural flow of your life and of what, you know, your talents are. So I really love that. And I'm so curious about when you stepped in, did the brand evolve in any different way? Were you just taking what was there and amplifying it? Did you put sort of a fresh spin on it? How did your presence impact the brand?
Well, when I first started, I didn't even really want to have a presence.
Okay.
So the first year, I was afraid to even like really put my face on Instagram.
Well, that's changed.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. And it's funny how things, you know, go through cycles. Because growing up, everybody knows my dad has a store. Come get your prom dress there. I'm posting about it when I'm working at the store, helping him out. Everybody knows, all my friends in Boston, I have a store. In college, yep, we have a store in Boston. And then the moment I like stepped into an actual business role, I was like, oh, whoa. This is very creative, so it's feeling a little too personal. I don't want people to start to, you know, judge. Now it's my art, because especially when it comes to like the logo and like the branding. So like now I'm actually showing you my art. So please be kind. And then I had this idea where, you know, you hear people talk and they'll say like, oh, it was so good, you know, when the parents owned it, and then the son took over, and now it's not as good.
Oh my God.
And I was so nervous about that, which now I'm like, relax. They're either going to like it or they're not. But, you know, try your best, and, you know, the efforts will show. But I was so nervous, so I didn't even really put my face on there. And then little by little, I'd, you know, post a selfie, and it'll have like a clip, or I'd do like a Q&A and be like, hey, new arrivals this week. And then at a certain point, it was just like, all right, you have to dive in fully. Like you have to start posting on TikTok. You have to start posting on like my personal Instagram. I kind of kept them separate at first. And now if you look at my Instagram, every post is like a collab post with the store. But at first I was like, okay, I don't want to, because I never wanted customers to say like, you know, she's really trying to throw herself in there a little too much, which now nobody says that. I actually have so much support from our customers and our community, but I never wanted it to be like, no, you're not, you know, the star of the show. And now I'm like, well, actually, I'm like the host of the show.
Exactly. Well, it's the thing about brand is people want to know, and when they know the person behind the brand, whether it's you or your dad or your mom, they like, oh, and especially since your store is got such a level of community as part of its mission. People want to know, and it's like, oh, I'm going to go see Zoe. You know, I think that's great. So what would you say to somebody who's where you were maybe then, and they're like, I know I need to show up, I know I need to do this for my brand, I know I need to blah, blah, blah. What advice would you give them about how to get over that hurdle of like, oh, I don't want to do that?
Well, honestly, what you said, people want to know you. People want to know the story behind the brand, especially now when we're in a time with so many, small businesses going out of business and just like constantly seeing these like huge conglomerates. Like, people want a story behind the brand. That's why, influencers are so popular, because people want to know you. And so let them know you, let them in, and you have a story to tell. And, even if you might not think it's interesting, that's because you're living in your life. That's because you're like experiencing it every day. But to someone who's never met you, no, that's fascinating how you got here. And your story is interesting, and you have to be willing to, try it out. Post a couple videos of, of yourself and see how they go. You don't have to post a video a day telling all of your secrets, but post something and see how it feels. And you'll be surprised at the positive reception.
Yeah, and you might get negative reception, and that's okay too, because then that's not your audience.
Yeah, and then okay, this is what happens. I got a negative comment. How am I handling it?
Yeah.
And then if one day you get 1,000 positive comments and 10 negative comments, you know how to handle it then. So you're just looking at it from this, the scale, and the scale will grow. But okay, how can we do it at this, at this range?
So tell me, you're like putting yourself out there, you're storytelling. What is the vibe and the essence of the House of Culture brand?
It's very family oriented.
Very family.
Yes,
okay.
and it already was. When I was growing up, and it was my dad, because it was just like people are. My dad's friends were like, just sometimes they were just hanging out at the store, but it was like welcoming. Like there's already people hanging out, having a good time. On top of that, someone's coming in and they're trying on a dress, and someone in the dressing room next to them has their first day of work, and this girl's trying on a prom dress, and everyone's kind of, it's like such a communal vibe.
Yeah.
And so it still has that. And now I try to bring that more into the social media aspect of things. So I try to tell stories and kind of bring people in, because I want people to feel comfortable with us. And I just updated our gallery wall at the store, so you can really kind of tells our story, right?
Yeah.
It's like old, clippings of my father when he was in like the Boston Globe or the Boston Herald articles. And then it's old fashion show photos and like our postcards, just things that really tell our story. So when you walk in, you're like, it's kind of like a museum. Like, okay, this is where they've been. And then I try to bring the community aspect too. And when you asked about, how am I trying to bring the brand forward, I'm trying to do more community events.
So what does that look like?
So I saw a need for more like social events in Boston, and people just want to get to know more people.
Yeah, especially after COVID, right?
Especially after COVID. And Boston's tough because it's a college city, so there's a lot of transplants. But when you first move, that doesn't mean you immediately come, you move, you get a new job, and you get 10 friends. It's hard to...
Well, I'm a transplant too, so I know that.
Yeah, it's hard to immediately come into a city and find people. So I saw a need for that, and I posted actually a TikTok, and I was just like, I really like growing up in Boston. Like, I know people complain about the city. I loved growing up in Boston. I love the city. I think we have a lot of resources, and, I think it can be tough, finding like fun, where... Not that it doesn't exist in Boston, but if you go to a city like New York, you're just walking down the street and there's a day party and you just walk in and now, maybe you meet your best friend for life.
Yeah.
Where in Boston, it's a little different. You have to think through, okay, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? Yeah. A little more, so.
But people are hungry for that, though.
Exactly.
So if you're offering something like that, people are, people want to be around other people.
Exactly. So we had a pop-up in the Seaport.
Okay.
And that space was also an art gallery.
Oh, cool.
So I decided, okay, let's do a social series and just invite people to the store on Sundays or on the weekends, and we'll have music. Maybe we'll have some, alcohol, some mixed drinks, and people can come and, just have like a community vibe and get to know people. And so the first one I did, which was really kind of a bold idea, I did it for my birthday.
Yay!
So basically, I already had to work on my birthday because we had the pop-up, and I was manning the pop-up. My dad was manning Columbus, our main store. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to invite all my friends to come on Sunday, and it'll be like a little day party, and technically I'll be working, but it'll be like,
I like how you weave your birthday party in.
Yeah, everybody, exactly, like, come visit me at work. That's really what it was.
Yeah.
And then I was sitting at the pop-up one day, and I was like, oh, I should just post about, like, this could be the first one. I'll just throw a TikTok up. And that's what people say. People are always like, it's the video you least expected that ends up doing well.
Right.
So I threw it up on TikTok and I was like, hey, everyone seems to be a lot of, desire for community in Boston. My birthday is this weekend. Come and, celebrate with me. My friends are really cool. You'll have a good time.
Yeah.
Because I knew there will be people there because my friends are going to show up, right?
Yeah, right.
And I know my friends are great. So if you come in and you're like, hey, I'm an engineer. Oh, they're engineers. You can meet them. Or
That's so cool. So like you're a power connector.
Exactly. I already knew that I can kind of plug and play.
I love that.
So that video ended up probably getting like 1,000 likes, and I woke up in the middle of the night at like 5. It was like 4 a.m. and I was like, well, they can't all come. Like, oh no, like it's very no. And I called my dad. I knew he'd be awake, so I called him and I was like, that video is getting more views than our usual videos.
Yeah.
These people can't all come. And he was like, well, it's already up. I was like, should I delete it? And he was like, it's already up, it's fine. Yeah. And I went back to sleep and I woke up a couple hours later and I was like, there are 200 more likes.
Oh no.
But it ended up being fine. Obviously not all of those people came.
Yeah.
But it was a great time and people made real friendships.
Oh, that's so great.
Like I said, there was a girl, her name was also Zoe, and she was an engineer. And I said, oh, my friend Jared, he's an engineer. You could talk to him.
Oh, I love that.
Or girls that are like, oh, I'm into this. Oh, talk to my friend Kylie. She's super cool. And it worked out really well. And actually this one girl, she ended up posting on her Instagram and she was like, guys, I made friends today.
Oh,
Thank you
that must
so
have made
much.
you feel so good.
And then her and one of the girls that came to my birthday party, they went to church together and they hung out.
Oh.
It made me feel so good. So
I love that.
So we did
I
it.
got chills.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And so then we, continued doing that series in January, and we're going to bring it over to Columbus as the weather gets nicer.
Yeah.
Because for Columbus, I want it to be kind of like an indoor-outdoor vibe.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited. We're just figuring out how we're going to do it there at our flagship store. But
I love that.
that's the next iteration. Is we already had that communal vibe, so now having full events.
I always talk about this on the show, that people have this, and I see it online in the comments, especially with all the political rah-rah that's going on, that Boston has very reputation in certain areas. And I'm like, have you been to Boston recently?
Yeah.
It's so different. It's so diverse. And we all have our own perspective, but that's not the perspective I have. Do you feel that way? Do you feel like Boston's changed?
I loved growing up in Boston. And since I also, when I was younger, I was on the Mayor's Youth Council for the city when I was in high school. And now I'm on Spark, as the council for the city of Boston for young people, 20 to 35, that kind of represent our age group and, advocate for what we want to see in the city.
Yeah.
So because I've done things with the city, I'm like, no, Boston has so many resources. Like, obviously, there are areas where we could be better. Also, Boston is one of the most expensive cities in the country.
True.
But Boston has so much, and I loved growing up here, and I feel like the world was really my oyster. Like, when I tell you my mother signed me up for every sport, like, I tried everything once, at least. So I feel like, no, there's so many resources, there's so many types of people in the city of Boston, and, like, you don't always know where to go. Yeah. So if I can create a space where it's very clear, like, well, just go here, try it out, see if you like them. Whether it's going to a social or just going to find a new outfit, just come in and you'll find some community. Because if maybe we're not your community, but if you say like, oh, I'm really interested in this. Oh, well, one of our friends is actually the director of da-da-da over at this. You should connect with her. Follow on her Instagram. I'll tell her to follow you back.
Well, and I know that you're super connected too, because we didn't talk about all of your dad's stories, but we were in the store and he's like, yeah, the Wahlbergs used to come and I hang out with the Patriots. And I'm like, okay. I thought I was just coming in to say hi, but I didn't know all of those
There's
things.
something for everyone.
I know, that's so amazing. And I'm so impressed with you. I mean, obviously, you're a hustler and you're an entrepreneur, but you're also like a community leader and a young leader in the city of Boston. I think that's so amazing. I mean, I think that you embody what I think of as a wonderful diva, and it is the Diva Life show. So I always ask everybody, when you think of the word diva, what comes to mind for you?
I was waiting for this.
Yeah, good, okay.
But I feel like my answer might not be that interesting, because I'm going to take it from Beyonce. Okay. In her song Diva, she said diva is the female version of a hustler. And I think it is somewhat you create what you want to see.
Right.
So maybe people will call Mariah Carey a diva, but she's creating what she wants to see. Right. From, the music she wants to put out, or she doesn't want to step on that puddle, creating what you want to see. And that's what I'm trying to do. So, creating what I want to see in the vision I have for the city. Yeah. And kind of taking charge too. Yeah. And I think that's a diva, and I think it's absolutely one of the best things you can be. It's,
100%. So someone who creates the vision, creates what they want to see, takes charge.
And executes.
And executes. Looks like I'm looking at one right here.
Looking at one.
But thank you so much. So I really appreciate you coming on.
This was lovely. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. And as always, thank you for joining us as well. And until next time, here's to hitting all your high notes. Take care. Bye-bye.